Hello and welcome back to my class. Today I'm here with a new chapter, chapter 4, The Rat Trap, written by Selma Lagerlof. In the previous video, you got a brief summary of the chapter, besides a brief character sketch of all the characters used in this story. Today, I'm here with explanation, so here we go. Once upon a time, there was a man who went around selling small rat traps of wire. He made them himself at odd moments from the material he got by begging in the store or at the big farms. But even so, the business was not spatially profitable. So he had to resort to both begging and petty thievery to keep body and soul together. Even so, his clothes were in rags, his cheeks were sunken, and hunger gleamed in his eyes. So, talking about this rat trap seller, he was poor. He went about the places selling the small rat traps that he would make himself. Would make that all by himself, and for this the raw material or the material was received from the big farms and the stores. So he would go there and he would ask for the coils, the cables and the coils that were of no use to them, and they would give them off because he was a poor man. So with that material, he would make the rat trap at his free time. Whenever he would get a short free time or a short break, he would make them. Though in his work there was no free time because his work was quite tiring, quite tedious. So he would hardly get any time. So maybe during the lunch break or in the evening he would make them. Still, the business, his work was not that profitable, and the profit that he would make from selling these rat traps was not sufficient for him to manage his expenses, to meet his needs, his requirements, though he was all alone. And for this, he had to resort, he had to beg, he had to take to thievery, stealing. And yet, he could not wear decent clothes. He could not wear good clothes. He was always in rags, tattered clothes, and there was always hunger in his eyes. Even his cheeks had sunken. There was no flesh in his face. No one can imagine how sad and monotonous life can appear to such a vagabond who plod along the road, left to his own meditation. But one day this man had fallen into a line of thought which really seemed to him entertaining. He had naturally been thinking of rat traps when suddenly he was struck by the idea that the whole world about him, the whole world with its lands and seas, its cities and villages, was nothing but a big rat trap. So since he had to walk a long way every day, so life was very dull for him, very monotonous, very dull for him. And we cannot imagine the kind of hard work he did to earn his livelihood. So this was his condition, and every day he walked a long way. During his tiring journey, he would think deeply because there was no one to talk to. So he would just think of his rat traps, and he would be lost in it, lost in the thought of it. And one day, while he was thinking of the rat trap, suddenly a thought came to his mind that the whole world about him, that is the whole world, is nothing but a big rat trap with its land, with seas, big cities, and villages. All these things make up a big rat trap. It had never existed for any other purpose than to set baits for people, and this existed. All this land, seas, cities, villages, this and that, all these things existed there only to lay baits for the people, to trap people in it. It offered riches and joys, shelter and food, heat and clothing, exactly as the rat trap offered cheese and pork, and as soon as anyone let himself be tempted to touch the bait, it closed in on him, and then everything came to an end. And it acted just the same way as a rat trap did. As we set a bait inside it, in the same way, the riches, the wealth, money, or the clothes, that is the fashion, big house, that is home, shelter, food, good food, all these things are nothing but the bait for the humans to get lured, to get tempted by these things. And the moment they get tempted and the moment they start chasing these things, they fall prey to it and they are trapped. The world had, of course, never been very kind to him. So it gave him unwanted joy to think ill of it in this way. It became a cherished pastime of his during many dreary ploddings, to think of people he knew who had let themselves be caught in the dangerous snare, and of others who were still circling around the bait. So the world had not been very kind to him. People were not kind to him. They treated him in a bad way, ill-treated, misbehaved with him, and it was a source of joy to think ill of them as well, as to think of these people getting trapped inside a rat trap, and and not able to come out of it, suffering there. So it gave him immense pleasure to think in that way, and that was his cherished, his favorite pastime, to think of those people getting trapped, circling, others circling around this bait. So that was the only source of his pleasure while he would be walking a long way, taking his long journey, and going to places selling his rat traps. One dark evening, as he was trudging along the road, he caught sight of a little grey cottage by the roadside, and he knocked on the door to ask shelter for the night. One dark evening, it was dark. He was late. He could not reach, or say he could not get any customer that day. So he kept on walking and went far ahead of his place. So he could not return, and the night befell. That was night, dark, and he found a hat by the roadside, a grey hat, suggesting old hat, and then he went there and asked for shelter for the night. Nor was he refused. Instead of the sour faces which ordinarily met him, the owner, who was an old man without wife or child, was happy to get someone to talk to in his loneliness. In ordinary cases, in other cases, generally, when he did so, he would be met by unpleasant faces. That is, he would meet the unpleasant faces, and they would turn him away from there. But today, the owner of the house welcomed him, and he treated him well. He welcomed him, and because this owner was all alone, was not having wife, and neither nor he was having a child, so he was more pleased to receive a guest because he would get a person to talk to. So he was very pleased. Immediately he put the porridge pot on the fire and gave him supper. Then he carved off such a big slice from his tobacco roll that it was enough both for the stranger's pipe and his own. And then he went to the kitchen and then prepared food for both of them. They had it, or they had it contentedly. And then after the food, it was time to smoke, and he shared the smoke as well. That is, he shared his tobacco, and both of them enjoyed the smoke too. And after that, they played a card of games until it was time. It was too late for them to go to bed. The old man was just as generous with his confidences as with his porridge and tobacco. The guest was informed at once that in his days of prosperity the host had been a crafter at Ramso Ironworks and had worked on the land. Okay, so he shared everything with him. Even the secrets had been shared with him. So he said that during the days of prosperity, when he was young and he could earn, during those days he worked at ironworks, Ramso Ironworks, and there he had a land leased from the owner, and he worked there. Now that he was no longer able to do day labor, it was his cow who supported him. So also during the days of prosperity, he was a farmer, so he was a peasant, say. He was a peasant. And now, as he's old, and he cannot do the day labor, that is the hard work, so he sits at home, and here he has a cow which earns him the livelihood. Yes, that Bossy was extraordinary. She could give milk for the creamery every day, and last month he had received all of 30 krona in payment, and he said that it was real bossy, domineering. It was the leading member of the family, a leading earning member of the family, and last month it fetched 30 kronas for him. That is the milk that the cow gave, and he sold the milk to the creamery, and there from that he earned 30 kroners last month. The stranger must have seemed incredulous, for the old man got up and went to the window, took down a leather pouch which hung on a nail in the very window frame, and picked out 3 wrinkled 10-krona bills. And since he thought that this man would not believe it, so he went to the window, and there was a nail in the window frame, and on this nail hung a leather pouch. He removed that pouch and opened and removed the 30 kroners bill, that is the 30 kroner, and showed him all the currency. These he held up before the eyes of his guest, nodding knowingly, and then stuffed them back into the pouch. Then He held the notes before the eyes of his guest, and then as he realized that yes, those were that he was not telling a lie, was not making any story as he believed, as the guest was satisfied, he put the notes back into the pouch, leather bag. This is all for now. Thank you.